Hey, everybody. On this episode of The Hopeful Has Been, I'm going to cover the superior therapy story. So, I'm going to kind of try to condense down different parts of my career, and I want to lump that into marketing and how you can use some of the marketing tactics that I've used over the years to enhance your business or your practice. And also, I hope that this podcast comes across as motivational, because we have definitely had some highs and lows of owning our rehab business. And if it weren't for those highs and lows, we wouldn't be on the path that we're on now. And so, that being said, I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into the story of where I started. So, one of the first kind of hard knocks, I guess, if you will, is it's a misconception about me that everybody thinks that I'm really outgoing and I'm this just like person that's so used to being in the public eye. And honestly, that couldn't be further from the truth. Like, you want to talk about anxiety? I have anxiety literally every video that I shoot. I don't like watching myself back on camera. Rarely do I go back and listen to podcasts or videos or anything like that because I always feel like we're our own biggest critic. But I had to come over that hurdle because I'm just like, okay, I have information that needs to get out to my clients. I have information that is valuable. And so at some point, I just have to stop worrying about what I look like on camera and I have to get the information out. And all y'all listening, y'all keep asking for more, more, more. So, again, like I'm trying to give the people what they want. But when we go back to like where I started, when I was in human massage school, that was one of the biggest critiques that I got was I went into that, saying like, I want to own my own business. I already had a building picked out in Anadarko where I lived. Like I was fairly certain because I had job shadowed under a more experienced therapist for a long time. I was just like, I can do this. I can make it. I'm going to work on the road while I rodeo. I had this huge goal in mind because I had decided my freshman year of high school, massage therapy was what I wanted to do. So I kind of, put all my eggs in one basket and it's like, this is what I'm going to do. One of the biggest pieces of feedback or critique that my instructor gave me was she said, if I didn't learn to come out of my shell and if I didn't learn to talk to people, that I would never be the face of a business. And, of course, being young and ambitious, I was like, oh, well, I will show you. And of course, here I am now with with a huge social media page, and I'm doing videos every week. 18-year-old me would have never thought that to be possible, but here we are doing the thing. And so, that was a bit of harsh criticism, but it was something that became a foundation of like, okay, I may be scared to do this, but I have to do it anyway. And so, I worked the first 12 years of my career mobily and having an office there in Anadarko. I worked on people, worked on some horses. And, as I was building my business there, I had enough clients to make a good living, but I wasn't so overwhelmed that one business started to take over the other. And then the more I traveled, I ended up having to step away from working on horses and just focus on working on people because that side of the business was starting to grow enough that I was exhausted trying to keep up with both. And I'm like, hey, like right now, in the barrel races that I'm going to, the rodeos that I'm going to, the futurities, there's a huge demand and a huge need for people, for people needing worked on. And so I'm like, I'm going to pursue that. And so I stepped away from working on horses other than my own and a few scattered in here or there. And I primarily worked on people. And like I said, I did that for 12 years before even thinking about putting in superior therapy, the rehab facility. And, there was great, like I loved going and working on the road because when I started doing that, I could take a horse. I would pick a show that I wanted to enter, do a booth there and run as well. Well, then after a while, that started taking a toll on me where I felt like I wasn't getting my horse out and walking them enough. Some days I was so exhausted by the time that I would get on to run. I was like, okay, I can't do this. I can't keep up with the workload and haul a horse. And kind of my deciding factor on it was I ended up on two different occasions. I actually missed my run because I didn't get out there in time because somebody needed one more thing from the booth, or I didn't judge my time stepping away from the booth well enough. This was when you're young and you're just trying to make money and you're trying to get started, you want to be that people pleaser. And I didn't have good boundaries of, no, I am leaving the booth at this time and there's no exceptions to that. So what I did instead was I started to just go and work and not take a horse. So I kind of started stepping away from the competition side of things. I was also starting to have more trouble with my endometriosis and some of my health struggles that I have had along the way, and had several surgeries by that point. Had a hysterectomy at one point. Later on ended up having to have my hips replaced after a couple failed hip surgeries. Just a whole laundry list of things where it's like, okay, right now I am in that I have to make a living so that I can go to the next step of my set of goals. And so, fast forward to me starting Superior Therapy. It took me probably 2 years of working on a business plan to kind of get this to come to fruition. And in 2016, there were not actually in 2015, 14-ish, when I started putting this business plan together, there were not a lot of rehabs out there that I could compare like statistics to, like writing a business plan, because they just weren't out there in our area. And so, I was familiar with underwater treadmills, not the above ground. I did my initial learning on the in-ground underwater treads. The first time that I had any training on that was in 2007. And so there was a few places that, farms that had private practices and things like that, where they would have this piece of equipment for their own horses, but they would let other people use it as well. And so, again, I took this concept of, I want to think about physical therapy on the human side, because that's where I had so much knowledge. I'd worked with a lot of physical therapists. I'd worked with surgeons. I had multiple surgeries myself. I knew a lot about the medical industry on the human side. And I was like, I can take this concept and I can cross it over where I can help horses. And I was also, after 12 years of working primarily on the road, I was like, man, I would maybe like to not be working 17 hours a day on concrete at shows. If I put this facility in, then, I have a little more structure, a little more of a stable income, and that will take me into my, next set of goals. So anyway, back to the business plan, like putting that together was kind of hard. Because I was just having to pull ideas out. Like, I was the first true rehab facility to open in the state of Oklahoma. There was one that I could kind of model off of in Texas a little bit. There were some out east, but none of them were really doing exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a body worker owned facility that had a focus on body work and then added equipment based off of that existing skill set. So securing my property was a big hurdle. We actually put that property under contract with a bank in August of 2016. And that bank, we had that, goodness, before we got it sealed over, we had that property under contract, and we did not end up closing until December. So it was a long process of hoping that that worked out. And actually that bank ended up backing out. Like, I tried to go through SBA. I went through some women-owned programs. Nobody wanted to do a startup. And I had pitched the project not as a startup, as an extension of my existing successful bodywork business. And it's like, hey, no, I'm just relocating, I'm rebranding, and I'm expanding. They were not going to listen to that. Like everybody's like, no, you're a startup. You're a startup and you're probably going to fail and nobody wants to sign up startups. Okay. And so anyway, I ended up getting that property secured with a rent to own. Which now, if you were to ask me, would I do another rent to own in this lifetime? I would not. But I had to take the leap of faith and just be like, okay, I'm doing a rent to own through an investment company. This contract's kind of sketchy. I hope I don't get screwed over in this deal. But this is my vision. This is my dream barn. This is my dream, and I'm going to take this leap of faith because I'm that person that feels like even when you hit a hurdle or a bump in the road, maybe that's just the universe sending you in a different direction that you're supposed to go. A river has banks, and sometimes erosion and things like that change the flow of the water. And I feel like that our lives are very similar to that. And so, anyway, coming back to how we started the business, I had already started one big mistake that I made with my initial bodywork business is that I did not have a business page. I was simply Massage by Summer Terry. I would tell people where I was going on my personal page. I never saw the need to have a business page. Now, if you go and you look at my business or at my personal profile, I have tons of followers, tons of people on there. My friends are maxed out. And it took me a long time to get people to switch over to the business page. And sometimes, much to Pat's irritation, they still message me on my personal needing a business thing that Pat could be handling if they would message the business page. And, I don't mind that much because that's how I set it up. I don't put anything on my personal page that I wouldn't put on my business page anyway, other than like, I don't know, maybe my taste in music or something. But if I had that to go back and do over, I would have kept my personal page a little more personal, and I would have sent everybody to a business page. But anyway, so then I started the Superior business page as soon as the property went under contract because I needed to build that engagement and I needed to build it quick because I was taking all of the savings, a bit of money, a bit of an investment from my family. Talk about putting all of your eggs in one basket. I was embarking on a journey that, hadn't really been done before. And, I'm just like, I can't fail because I am putting everything I have into this. And so I started, kind of promoting and building engagement, and I had the logos done and I had, all these things in place, but I left a little bit of the illusion there that I was just relocating my current bodywork practice. I kept telling people, oh, I have big things coming. I have big things coming. But there were only a small handful of people that actually knew what was coming. And so by the time I was able to open the end of 2016, I already had a following of 1,500 or 2,000 people on my Facebook before I even actually told people what I was doing. And so, to me, that building that curiosity, building that engagement, starting that following is so important when you're at the startup point of a business. Start getting your stuff out there. Don't wait until you're ready to open to start building that engagement. And so, another thing that helped me, I always get asked, how was I able to be successful so quickly? Part of that was because everybody knew me. And I don't mean that to sound arrogant. I mean that as I was the kid that grew up in this industry. I had my first national title at a very young age. I held the record for a time of being the youngest person to qualify at NBHA World Finals in the 1B. I'm pretty sure one of the Steinhoff kids broke that record. I do want to have them on a podcast, so maybe we'll get some clarification on that. But I'm pretty sure when they came in, they broke that record, and I held it up until that point. Anyway, so I was lucky to be successful with my barrel horses, I was lucky to be successful with my massage therapy business, with my bodywork business. And so that helped me launch Superior Therapy very quickly because I could use the tagline of, hey, I've been taking care of the needs of the rider for 12 years at all the barrel races. Now I'm transitioning to a facility where I'm taking care of the needs of the horse. And of course, I also, in that barn, I also still worked on people. So I had a massage office in the lobby of my barn, and then of course, obviously the rehab right outside the door. So it was easy for me to get started because I had a foundation of a good reputation. And we'll get into a little bit of marketing later on and talk about how you can find your footing in the industry as well. And so, fast forward to, our first year, one of my biggest lessons of that first year of business was learning to rigidly stick to my morals. If something doesn't align with my moral compass, I don't want to do it. One of the first high-end clients that I had sent me 2 horses that were at another rehab facility, and they were not getting the results that they wanted. And so they send me these horses, and point blank wanted me to lie. They were like, we have these horses sold. They are, we already have contracts for the sale on these, and point blank, we're not going to disclose the injuries on these horses, and we need you to fix them. The other rehab couldn't fix them. We need you to fix them. And when you're starting out in business, you go, okay, this seems sketchy, but I got to make money because I'm starting out. Okay. And that being said, like, we were able to help both of those horses. A big component that was being missed at the other facility was the bodywork component. And so, being able to combine the bodywork with the use of equipment, we were able to turn both of those horses around. And to be honest, I never felt good morally about that. Maybe I would have felt better if I wouldn't have known that these horses were under contract to be sold after such and such date. It just, I recognize that a lot of times we have to go, okay, not my circus, not my monkeys. Like, what you do when you leave this facility is on you. But the way that situation was presented to me was so extremely shady. And actually, a bit of time later, that person wanted to come back and work with me again, and had multiple horses that they wanted to send. And I turned away that business. That is just somebody. I have a few people that have made a list of, I don't have time for working with you. And, I never had a harsh word with that client. It just, when it didn't align with me morally, it's like, nope, I'm just not going to go into that territory again because your moral compass does not align with mine. And that's okay, because there's plenty of other places that have no problem with doing business like you. Go find one of them, because it ain't me. And, so that would be like my first piece of advice, is stick to your gut, stick to your moral compass, because the last thing that I want is somebody coming back and going, oh, well, this horse was in this facility, and then look at this terrible thing that happened. I can't prevent everything. I had another client, this was years later, that I'm not really somebody that's very quick to anger in business, and I try not to get flustered. But this was one situation where I had to walk away, because if I opened my mouth, it was going to be something I wasn't going to be proud of saying later on. So I chose to walk away from the situation. But we had a horse that was in our facility that had a leg fracture. And the vet had cleared that horse to exercise. The rider didn't want to pay for a whole month, didn't want to pay for an extended stay. We settled on a shorter amount of time. The horse goes home, and then sure enough, I'm at a show later on, and this was right after I'd sent this horse home, and I'm thinking, wow, I heard her name. Like, I didn't think that her horse was, I didn't think she had another horse to run. And I look at Pat and I said, oh no, you don't think. And Pat's like, oh, there's no way. And here she comes in running on this horse. And he bails off the first barrel, runs down the fence. It's just this epic cluster of, she almost comes off of him. He runs off. It is a whole big deal. And I look up and I'm just like, I cannot believe she ran that horse. Like, knowing that horse wasn't vet cleared, like, she went around me, called the vet, asked the vet that, could she run this horse? The vet had already told her no. I told her no. Everybody had told her no. And here she is on this horse with this explosion of things in a public scenario. And of course, I'm just over here going, I'm thankful his leg didn't explode. Like, I'm glad that his legs stayed together enough for him to run off with her around the pen. And then the next thing I know, here comes the mom over here to get in my face. And she's like, we paid you X amount of money for this horse. And look, we brought it to the barrel race. This horse just ran off. And I said, the horse was not even cleared to run, for starters. Like, it should not have been here. To be honest, the horse should still be in my rehab if we want that horse healed up. And that is not what happened here. And, the lady walks off because she has no grounds to continue arguing. And I look at Pat and I said, I have to go sit in the truck. I said, because if she comes up to me, what I'm going to have to say is not going to be very business professional, and it's not going to be very kind. And I need to just walk away. And so I went and hid out in my truck till I could cool off, because that was one situation that I'm like, you could have gotten your horse killed and you could have gotten you killed. And, it just, those are the situations, though, that we deal with every day owning a rehab. Not everybody's going to heed your warnings. So the lesson there was, I started aligning myself with clients that, if you don't understand the goals, like when you give me a goal of this horse needs to return to competition, and I tell you that horse is not going to be ready in 14 days, and you want to short something, then you're probably not going to be a client of mine, because I can replace you with a client that is going to put the needs of their horse first. That was my big takeaway from that situation of, you aren't going to do the right thing from the start, and you can't be a client of mine, because I'm always an advocate for the horse. And, so kind of fast forwarding, that was kind of early. That was early in our start. That was probably in our first 3 years of business. And one of my first speaking engagements was in 2018. It was very kind of just rolling through a little chronological order here of superior therapy. I got asked to go speak at OSU. And I told them when they asked, I said, you realize, like, I don't have a college degree, right? And also not very good at public speaking. And they said, this is for our intern program. And they said, if you want to take interns, if you would be interested in having some interns, you can come and speak at this. And then the anyone that's interested will bring you their resume at the end of the evening. I'm like, okay. So here I am, little old me, there with a bunch of booths, representing vet clinics, representing the 4-6s ranch, representing the Lazy E. I think there were a few other breeding farm type places there. I'm not sure there wasn't some pharmaceutical reps, like just a whole mishmash of different people out there looking for interns. And, and I'll remember leading off my speech, like, I was so nervous. I like completely blacked out, and it was just like, okay, this is just me talking just off the cuff. And, I explained what I do. And I'm pretty sure I like led that speech with, I'm probably the only one here tonight that doesn't have a college degree. And I ended up getting my first intern from that. And she actually ended up being a staff member. She transitioned from being an intern to being a staff member, and almost all the way up until we closed the facility. And I remember asking the manager at the time of the Four Sixes Ranch, I said, are interns worth it? Like, is it worth it to have interns? And he was like, yeah. He said, your interns will end up being the people that you hire. And he said, then you're not giving away all of your trades, all of your secrets. And, if they're willing to show up and work for free, they're going to end up being somebody that you hire if they stick with you. And I found that to be extremely true, especially as we transitioned into teaching our rehab course. Because, if I'm not going to have somebody that shows up, gets paid to work for 1 month, literally learns all of the skills that I teach in the paid rehab course, and then just bounces up out of there with their skills. So, for me, that was a valuable piece of information that became a standard at our facility, where, if you can't intern for 3 to 6 months, 2 afternoons a week to see whether or not you're a fit, you don't have the opportunity to get hired, because everybody wanted to come, they wanted a job, and then they would leave. And it's like, look, we are an educational facility, and you don't get to come learn for free and then bounce up out of here. And every one of my staff members was hired in that way. The only one that we hired kind of on the spot at the end of her training and at the end of a shorter internship was Jordan. Jordan interned for 3 weeks following her rehab course, I think. And the girls came to me and they were like, Jordan wants a job. And I said, well, then Jordan needs to come ask me for a job if Jordan wants a job. And I asked the girls, like, because I had such a loyal group of girls that worked for me. I had such an amazing staff. And I asked them, I said, does she fit? Because we had other people that had wanted to come and be hired, and they were not a fit. They were not a team player. They didn't work good with our team that we had. And so, that was always one of my things. Like, if you don't get along with the girls, you can't stay here. We run a tight ship. And so anyway, the girls come to me and they said, Jordan wants a job. And I said, well, then Jordan better come ask me for a job before she goes back home to Kentucky. And sure enough, Jordan came, and I said, the girls have spoken, they want you. So job's yours if you want it. And so that led into adding Jordan to the team. Carson was also another amazing addition too. Like, she came and, oh gosh, now I don't want to misquote if Michaela was there first or Carson was there first. I think Michaela might have been there first. Yeah, Pat's over here telling me yes, Michaela was there first. Michaela had actually met me at a show years prior, and because I am terrible at remembering faces, I didn't remember meeting her. And she had reached out to me for an internship that eventually turned into a job. And, she was right there with us until we closed as well. And then Carson came kicking my door in of, wanting to know, we had a horse of hers that we rehabbed. And, she was just like, I want to learn how to do this. And I'm like, okay. And actually, she was having a shoulder surgery. She kind of started her internship while she was in a sling, recovering from that shoulder surgery. And I'm like, okay, you can do anything but tread horses, because I don't want you hurting your shoulder. And so she kind of started in that fashion. And then she was kind of my come or go staff member, because she went to college. Like, she was about 3 hours away from where she went to college, 3 or 4 hours away from where she went to college. And so she was typically there on some weekends and then on her breaks from college. And so, those were kind of my main players there in the barn for a long time. Now, we had people that had come and went that worked for me for shorter amounts of time. And, they were all amazing too. Like that's the thing. Like, we ran a very tight ship, and I could say our staff got along really, really well. And of course, to back up, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. Whenever we had the tornado, talking about the tornado, like, that is a time, gosh, that I just glossed over. Hope was still working for me as an intern during that time, and we didn't have any other staff. And the tornado, 2019, 2019 just needs its own chapter because it was a lot. And I'm looking at my notes here. So starting in 2019, I had somebody that wanted to come and do training with us. So we had done a couple of weekend trainings, and I was like, oh, this isn't bad. Like, I kind of like this teaching thing. And so then I went to a conference in, I think, May of 2019. And I remember going into this conference, and I had paid to be there, and they were supposed to have, like a lot of stuff on social media, like how to do branding, how to do social media stuff. And I remember walking into that conference, and I was like, how do I be the face of a business when I don't like being on video? Like, so at this point, we hadn't really done a lot of video stuff. And and my business was doing okay, but I'm like, man, I could do better. And I'm just like, how do I do this and not have to be present on social media? And of course, they literally look at me and they're like, you're gonna have to learn to make videos, like do the thing. And I'm like, wow, did I just pay like $800 for this conference for you to just tell me to deal with it? But that was a huge takeaway from that. And I picked up several other tips at that conference as well. And so I'm like, okay, so this is May. And, I kind of keep praying on the situation. I'm like, how do I deal with this anxiety of being on video? I don't know how. And I kept just pushing it away and going, oh, I'll do it later. Oh, I'll do it later. Okay. I don't really want to do that. Like, do they even know what they're talking about? Like, they're just putting on this conference. Why do I have to be on video? So then August rolls around. I have a barn of, I think at that time I had 12 head in the barn because we weren't running a full staff yet. We were running this with a staff of 3. And we had a tornado hit our property. And I mean, I remember we were all down there in the lobby of the barn, hanging out in the office. And, Tim comes flying down the driveway in his car from O'Reilly's. Tim was my friend that rented the barn apartment above our barn. So Tim lived above our barn from like 2018 until we closed. So he comes tearing home from his job in town, and we no more get his brand new car into the barn part and drop the overhead door, and the tornado hits and rips the roof off. And so, I spring into action, and the first thing I'm like, we have to get these horses to safety. And at that time, I had already sold my living quarters. I'd already sold my bigger trailer that I had when I moved from Anadarko. So I had just my 2-horse that I use as a little runaround trailer to take client horses to the vets and stuff. And so I'm like, how am I going to get these horses off this property? Like, I don't know, like we walked out into the barn and it just looked like something out of a movie of stuff just swirling around, like being in a hurricane. And I'm like, I've got to get horses out of this barn. And so I get on a Facebook Live. So I'm gonna back up and say this was the first Facebook Live I had ever done. So, if you're a faith-based person, it made me think about that quote where it's like, sometimes God sends a whisper and sometimes God sends a train. In our case, that train was a tornado. So without even time to even think about being afraid, I get on a Facebook Live and I say, I need help. If anybody has a trailer that can come and transport client horses, I need somebody out here now. And so we call, and so then we spring into action, and I go in the med room, grab sedation, and I start sedating every horse on the property because I'm like, I have to prevent ulcers. I have to prevent let's sedate them because I don't want any of them to get anxious. I don't know what kind of trailers are coming, and we've got to get them out of here. So then my second call was Oak Ridge Equine, and I called them and I said, I'm in trouble. And of course, we had used them. I got a lot of referrals from them, had great relationship with them. And I call them and I said, I need help. I said, I'm in trouble and I need to transport horses here or out of here. And they said, we're going to have stalls in the upstairs or the barn up the hill. They'll have them ready for us. And they said, we have a team waiting for you. And so we transported 12 client horses, because my personal horses were out in pasture in paddocks and they could get far enough away from the wreckage, and transported them out of the barn. We had some local people that showed up that helped us, and like it was amazing. Um, and we only had one horse that had a slight scrape to the hock, and it was something that, Oak Ridge looked over all of them. I paid to have every client horse looked at, um, and which was, a big chunk financially for us to deal with. Um, and then the insurance battle started. This was one of the hardest situations that we went through, because, and I had a very public, um, because I was just like, hey, I'm a transparent person. Here's what I'm going through. I had an insurance agent that had come in, and one of those, oh, I specialize in barns, I specialize in this, and I can save you money. And I did not know enough as a young person starting a business about reading the insurance policies, because nobody in my family had ever had to do a storm policy. We really had never, the only insurance thing I'd ever dealt with vehicles was back when I was rodeoing. I got hit by a drunk driver that, so the fault was not of mine. I found out that I was sorely undercovered as far as what it was going to take to repair the facility. And then even better at that, the insurance didn't want to issue me a check. So this is August. They sent out 4 different appraisers, and I couldn't figure out why they were sending out so many appraisers. Because I was like, okay, we're sitting here in shambles. Like, and we were on the news. We were, because at that point, I'm like, how are we going to survive? Like, we're such a new business here. Like, we're succeeding, but we're succeeding because we have horses in. And and I'm just like, okay, like we can hold steady. Like we've got this. We've got savings. Like we're going to make it. And my rent to own, coming in, my goal on the rent to own on the property was to hopefully get it refinanced, because I had really high interest. My rent to own was really expensive. And I'm just like, okay, now I've got to send all these horses home. And so I sent all the horses home but 2. And I'm like, okay, if I can get, like, I'll be okay. Like, if I can get power back on here, I can keep these 2 horses. They can go in paddocks. They're on the back half of their rehab. Like, we got this. Like, it's going to be okay. And, it shouldn't take them long to get this barn back the way it needs to be. Well, so another thing that I got advised was to, until I got payment for the insurance, not to clean anything up. So the barn sat there for 30 days. And, I was continuing to rehab these horses without the use of the underwater treadmill. For a while, I actually rented a barn that was down the road. And when I went into that deal, I thought that they were going to donate it because it wasn't being used, and it was my vet calling in a favor for me. And then I ended up having to pay for it. So I'm like, okay, now I'm paying my property and I'm paying this extra property that I'm housing horses, having to trailer them back and forth up the road. So we got power turned back onto the tread really quickly. And so we had this little path where, instead of going down the part of the barn that was damaged, we could lead horses in, put them on the tread, make this little small circle, and go right back out the barn. So that way they weren't in there with any of the damage. And of course, we had to pull all the mats out, like, completely undo this barn. And so, anyway, then the insurance is refusing to pay. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Because my savings, like, I am just being financially crippled. And I'm trying to pay my one staff member that I have, just trying to survive. And I think the hardest thing there is, like, when you go through a storm like that, people don't realize that the storm itself is not the worst part. The worst part is the aftermath of learn of having to start over, or trying to get back what you've lost, or being financially crippled when you're a small business if you can't work. Um, and so, and so I ended up hiring a private adjuster to come in, and, and the reason that the insurance was sending out multiple adjusters was they were trying to get it down. Like, the damage that the adjusters were turning in was so much higher than what I had for a policy. They were trying to get them to come in there and say, oh, the damage isn't that bad, this is repairable. And during this time, I was like, okay, I have to do something to keep my business going. Like, I can't let my business die. So we actually started our first podcast because I'm like, well, I have some time to do something educational. And we started our first podcast, which, since we've rebranded into this one, but if you go back and listen to my older episodes, that's some of what I was doing during the time where I was just like, what am I going to do to keep engagement, to keep the engagement that I worked so hard to build. And also, like, I felt shunned by an industry that had raised me. Like, I had helped so many times in my career with donating or running silent auctions to people that were tornado victims, or to people that had lost horses, or to people that, just different causes. And I was like, I cannot believe I'm here drowning. Like, am I going to lose everything that I worked so hard to build? Am I going to lose this? And I have an industry that's turned their back and walked away. When you sit on social media and you see GoFundMe's for elective surgeries or vet bills or whatever, and then you are going through a crisis yourself and nobody steps up, it's disheartening. And, like, I had a friend, one of my best friends from home, she started a GoFundMe for us. But nobody in the industry donated to that. All the donations that we got were family, friends, or people that we knew, or even our circle of bar friends, of the little local bar that we would go hang out at Edmond. All of the people that came and helped with the cleanup were locals there to Guthrie. They weren't industry people. Like, that was the hardest thing about the whole situation, is it's like, I have given so much to this industry for y'all to not care about our suffering. And I realized that's a perspective, because people knew that we were having the insurance battle, because I was having to put stuff on Facebook of, hey, I don't know when I'm going to be able to open again because my insurance will not pay to repair the barn. It wasn't like that we didn't have that dialogue. And so, like, I ended up having to call in a favor to an MBHA director that was a friend of mine that, I had donated so much over the years and years and years of working her MBHAs and taking a booth. And I said, can I do a silent auction at your, like, I'm embarrassed to ask this, but can I do a silent auction at your race? And she's like, yeah. And I mean, I went and worked my guts out having a booth, and, a lot of the silent auction things were some of the stuff that we repurchased. And, that gave us a little bit to live on. And, it's just like, it's so scary to watch your dream possibly die because you're having to pull money out of your savings. And so anyway, fast forward, like, we were able to maintain and, just hold solid. And what we ended up doing was we had to do all of the cleanup ourselves. We repatched the roof ourselves. Tim called his family up there, and, like, we made the most beautiful, like, social media post on it of like an old-fashioned barn raising, where we literally put plywood. We plywooded the back overhead door, so that we could make it through the winter. Because now we're going on December, or no, this is November when we pieced together the door. We knew winter was coming. And I'm like, okay, I've got to start, like, I cannot sit around and wait for the insurance. Like, I have to get this cleaned up enough that I can continue my career. Like, I refuse to let my career die. And for the people that were following our social media back then, like, we all kept our morale so high through these trying times because, um, we laughingly called the hole in the roof. Like, I was already back we cleaned up everything and I was back taking in horses, and we were still working with what we called God's sunroof. Where, during the fall, like the sun would come over and you'd see it in the tread, as the sun was like shining through the hole. And it's just like, well, we have to pick up the pieces because we refuse to quit. And like I said, Tim's family, like, we were able to pay out of pocket to patch that barn up enough that we could go back to work. And so then when the insurance they finally issued our first check in December. So this is August to December before we got a penny from our insurance. And of course, when you hire a public adjuster, they take a percentage out of that. But at least it kept me from having to go to court to try to get paid. And in my research on insurance, like, all that adjuster would have, or not adjuster, all that insurance agent would have had to do is file an errors and omissions. Like, that's why they carry that coverage, in case they make a mistake. But she refused to. So then fast forward to January, we make it through winter. We had actually started doing some of our trainings. This is January of 2020. We finally get our second insurance check, which was, again, the total amount that we got from that situation was not even enough to replenish the savings of what we spent to continue keeping going, and the amount of income that was lost. And that was just a lesson learned there. Lesson learned of, I won't be in that situation again with insurance, and I will know exactly what's covered in my policy. It was just a live and learn thing. And so, here we are, fired back up again. We're housing 15 head of horses. I start adding, new staff members, and I'm like, all right, like, we've got this. Like, we're going to be able to rebuild back from this. Look at us go. And now we have this podcast. I'm used to doing Facebook Lives. Like, I want to educate. Like, this is kind of my dream, is I want to start heading in the direction of education. And then, of course, like everything else, COVID hits. And so I'm like, wow, we did not even mentally recover from almost getting wiped out from a tornado, and COVID hits. So that being said, we continued to work. I took the perspective of, if the veterinary clinics are open and they are still referring me surgery horses, we're going to continue working. We were not at full capacity through COVID, but we were able to continue working. And then December of 2020, my rent to own increased. They increased. So in a time when no business was able to work at capacity, they decided to up my rent to own, and by rights in a loophole in that contract, they got it done. And I had been working to refinance, but nobody wanted to take on the refinance part in the midst of COVID. And so I was just like, okay, I'm just going to keep on keeping on. And then we started really transitioning into, our business just kind of continued to grow. We started doing more educational videos. We started really building this following. And then we started adding in our certification programs. And to be honest, that was a huge passion of mine. And I don't mean to drone on in this podcast about like, oh, well, this is my life and this is my hardships and welcome to my TED Talk. But the way that I look at it is, it was God leading me to pursue something that would be a bigger legacy than what I had built there at Guthrie. Because I could help a certain amount of horses in a month by owning a facility, or I could take the skills that I had and I could teach others to do the same, and I could help so many more horses and so many more people. And really, that became the change in my mission statement, from let me help your horse to let me teach you and others how to help horses. And if it wouldn't have been for the tornado, if it wouldn't have been for COVID, if it wouldn't have been for these hardships of, my rent to own increased again in 2022. And towards the end, they were charging me $7,500 a month on that rent to own. And most of that was going to interest. And they weren't going to let me refinance it. They made me jump through so many loopholes. And at one point, my dad told me, he said, here's the deal. They're never going to let you own that property. At one point, I had a client that was going to owner finance it. They were going to pay off because I had such a small amount of payoff left that they quoted them an offer and that company would not take it. Well, then later on, we found out they were planning to put a housing development in around that property. And I have a feeling that probably that property will somehow get lumped into that housing development. And, again, this is not a poor, pitiful me story. This is here is the evolution of how my career has gotten to where it is now. And so, if I wouldn't have had these hardships that were just telling me, speaking to my heart and saying, this is not your final stop. This is not your final destination for your career. This is one blip in the amount of time that your career is going to span. And I kept thinking, okay, something bigger and better is coming along. Something bigger and better is coming along. Like, I just have to keep going. And by that time, again, Jordan had been working for me for quite a while. And talking about creating goals, entrepreneur rule number one, we have to create goals that are like a roadmap to where our final destination is. Where do we want to go with our career? And so for me, I was consistently coming up with, I would create a 1 month goal, a 3 month goal, a 6 month goal, a year goal, a 5-year goal, and a 10-year goal. And I had on my vision board that I wanted to own that facility for 10 years and then sell the practice and pursue education full time. Well, we made it 7 out of the 10, so we got pretty close. And one of the things that I realized with wanting to transition more into education is a lot of people that had facilities did not, because there was a lot of facilities that sprung up in the 2 years after we opened. And even more, they're opening up every day now. Now it's a concept that is understandable, and it's easier to get a business loan because you have things to compare to. You have successful practices to compare to, which I didn't whenever I was starting that journey. And so, again, creating those goals helps you to stay on that roadmap. And so then, when I told Jordan, I said, they are going to keep raising my rent to own until they edge me out of here. And what I want to pursue is the education. I have spent a lot of, running this thing as long as I've run it. I'm tired. I haven't been able to physically sit on any of my horses in like 6 years. I haven't got to compete. I haven't gotten to do anything for myself because I'm married to this facility. I said, I miss being on the road. I miss being a mobile practice. I miss doing something other than walking down to the barn every day. And Jordan, and I knew when Jordan started working for me that eventually she would go back home to Kentucky. She actually ended up living in the house with us. Not very long after she started working for me. She lived at Stillwater for a while and then needed somewhere to move into. And I'm like, hey, we got a spare bedroom. Do you want it? And so, Jordan ended up under our roof. And we also had another spare bedroom that a lot of times some of my other staff members might stay the night in. And so, one of the things that I recognized was people that owned existing facilities were hesitant to come and train with me because they saw us as a competing facility because I was still taking clients. And so, I had the thought process of like, okay, if I'm going to really embrace education and this being what I build the superior legacy on, then I have to eliminate myself as competition for my students and graduates. So now I just go around and teach. I'm not anybody's competition because I no longer own a facility. And that has opened the door for me to do private certifications, to go to other people's facilities, obviously to teach at Davina's there in Oklahoma, teaching out at Jordan's, where I get to go visit all my own equipment, where, she bought the entire practice from me and relocated it back to Kentucky. If I wouldn't have let go of that comfort zone, I would not have been able to progress into where I am today. And if I wouldn't have had those, extremely hard hurdles to have to get over, I don't know that I'd be where I am today either. It's like it's having to fight for what you believe in. And, so that's kind of the superior therapy story. And now I'm stepping into new adventures. We have some big projects in the works on the backside of things that we haven't revealed yet. I've joined an educational committee with the AAETT. I'm doing more research. We have all kinds of new things that if I was still housing, because at the end of my career, at the end of superior therapy, we were housing anywhere from 18 to 22 head of client horses and running a staff of 5 people. It's exhausting, like running that big of a facility where you specialize mostly in like post-surgery rehab and these really hard horses. We didn't even take a lot of fitness horses because our rehabs, we were booked out so far with rehabs that it was hard for us to even just take plain fitness horses. So everything that came through the door was a horse that had a laundry list of problems that took a lot of care, and being down there at 10 at night and, pulling wraps off and giving meds at 10 at night, or a staff member having to get there early because there was medicine that needed to be given on a mostly empty stomach an hour before we fed in the mornings. There was a lot of things that went into that behind the scenes that the average person doesn't even realize. And so, I appreciated my time of being a mobile practitioner the first 12 years of my career. I appreciated my time there at Superior Therapy, our facility. And now I'm on this like third leg of my journey where I'm an advocate for education. I'm an advocate for the horse. We do so much more social media stuff than we ever had time for when I had the facility, and I can embrace teaching and passing on my craft to others. And, so that being said, now that you know a little bit of my story, let's go into how marketing, what can we do for marketing for your business? Like what are some things that you can take away from this podcast that can help you? And like the first thing I want to talk about is, different ways as small businesses that we spend money. I'm going to lead off with dumb ways that I have spent money, or maybe not dumb, but ways that I've spent money that did not yield the return that I had expected. And, when we're starting out, my advice for you is to, and I'm going to be talking, in this podcast, obviously to therapy professionals mostly, but this could apply to any small business, honestly. Don't get trapped into feeling like you need to spend an astronomical amount for professional photos and videos. So you need to have a folder of professional photos that are raw images that can be sent. Because when you get asked to have a spotlight on a magazine article or a newspaper or something like that, those people are usually doing those stories and they have a very short time to write them, and then they will need your images sent. So have you a stock Google Drive that has stock images that are current, and that you can just go, they go, hey, I need a picture of you treading a horse. All right, boom, boom, boom. Here's 3 options. Take your pick. Same thing with video. We had actually, because we haven't updated it, it's still the same video. We have a professional video that runs across the top of our superior page that needs updated because it is a video from our facility that we no longer have. And that was a little bit of a hurdle in itself. Like I have had trouble in my experience when I hire professionals. They did not fit the image that I had in mind. And sometimes I feel like I was very good at, here is this long email of what I'm trying to accomplish. Here's my storyline. Here's my vision for this video. And then sometimes you hire a professional and they come in and they just do whatever they want. In the case of the video on the top of our page, I had to come back and say, hey, do you realize my husband didn't make it into the video? Like, where's all the footage of Pat? And so then they had to go back and add that in there. And when I had put this is my vision for this, like I want to be the Chip and Joanna Gaines of the horse therapy world. Like we're this husband and wife owned a business, and that's what I want to portray. And then I had to come back and go, where is the husband and wife part of this? And so, sometimes it can be very hard to find somebody that understands your vision. And, my recommendation too is like, I'm a people pleaser. I would have a tendency sometimes to pay for things from people and it not be really what I wanted. And I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings or, talk negatively about their art. So I would just pay them and accept something that wasn't really what I wanted. It took me a long time in my career to go, no, I'm paying you. This is my vision. If it does not meet these requirements, I'm not paying for it. You have to be able to meet the demand. And so don't compromise your vision just because you're working with another professional. Make sure that if you are paying for high quality things, and all that's expensive, make sure that they are having what you want to portray, like that your vision is being portrayed. And so what we do now, I can't remember the last time I hired anybody to take pictures or video. Kind of our workaround with that is we always make sure Pat has the newest iPhone that's on the market. Usually I get a phone like every other new phone because I'm an Android user. And Pat does so much more of the video and the photos because he's there day in and day out. And so he knows what moments I want to capture. He's also right there to capture a lot of the random moments where sometimes it's really hard. Another case in point, when we were shooting our videos for the rehab course, if you've taken the course and you're a graduate, you can tell which videos I paid for and which ones came off of our phones. I was under this impression that for people to take my rehab course seriously, that I needed to have all these professional videos. And so I spent $17,000. This is part of our things that we talk about in the course as well. I spent $17,000 on these beautiful, high quality videos to teach with. But the problem is it's really hard when you're working with horses to set up moments that just occur naturally in a rehab. So what we ended up doing was, it's like, okay, I need a horse that's hard to start on the tread. Well, that didn't happen while the videographers were there. So let's go back and shoot that with a cell phone. This horse makes an interesting case to teach with. Let's go shoot that video. So what we ended up with on the course is this mixture of professional videos and cell phone videos that are still really good quality. And what I learned from that situation is people just want good educational content. Sometimes the wind is blowing in a video. Sometimes my hair looks weird. Sometimes I don't have makeup on and maybe I'm not wearing the most flattering of an outfit. Some of our best videos that we have shot were last year working in Florida, and I am sweating into a puddle. I look like death warmed over, but those were some of the best educational moments that I think we have filmed in my career. And it was done with a cell phone. So I had to let go of that need to look perfect on video. It's like, well, if I'm sweating or my hair looks bad or my hair is not colored and needs retouched, what you got is what you got. If you want to learn bad enough of what I'm working on this horse, you will overlook all of those things and you will see what I'm teaching you on this horse. Now, not to say that maybe I don't come back and work with a great photographer at some point and have some nice high resolution images. You know, I'm not downing working with other professionals, but make sure that they align with what you need and don't spend a ton of money thinking that you have to have that to get started in business, you know, especially with how popular TikTok is. You know, there are so many ways that you can market yourself for free without spending a ton of money, especially when you're just getting started. Another thing I want to talk about is like social media management. Now, I'm going to preface with, when you read any of my posts, you know, most of the people that have met me, I want you to read that post and hear my voice. You know, that's the relationship that I create with my clients of, you know, sometimes I'll even have a grammatical error in there and Pat will go, you have a grammatical error. And I'm like, does it sound like something I would say that would come out of my mouth, or do I sound dumb? Because I'm like, if I sound dumb, like I need to fix that. I'm also the typo queen. Like I will go back and reshare posts that are years old. And I'm like, I just found a typo in there. Like people probably think I can't even English. And so it is hard for me. I have not had success with hiring people that want to manage all of your social media content, because I have a very unique style of writing, and it is very hard for somebody to recreate that. It doesn't take very long. Like when you message the page, even if we didn't sign our names on the bottom of the messages, it would not take you very long to figure out if you are talking to Pat or if you're talking to me, just because we have two very different voices that we use on the page. Even the posts that you see Pat create read differently than the posts that I create. And so, you know, not to say that, you know, I'm not going to say that hiring a media manager is bad. It just depends on what kind of relationship do you want to have with your clients. If you have a very individual voice like I do, it's going to be very hard for somebody to write in that voice, and your clients will see through that. But if you're somebody looking for more generic posts, a social media manager can do a lot to help you, because that's what they're trained in. They know how to get your post in front of the audiences that you need. We had the opportunity to work with a really great manager last year on running ads, where she just helped us by running ads for us. But then in the meantime, Pat was also teaching himself how to run those ads. And so now he has taken over that completely, which for me, in the way that I do my posts, I am very spontaneous, down to the point that I had intended on doing a Kissing Spine podcast today. And here we are talking about marketing, because Summer got up this morning and that's what she wanted to talk about. So here we are. And so it's hard for somebody like me to work with a manager, because they like to usually schedule a month's worth of posts at a time. And, you know, if I want something boosted, all I have to do is holler into the other room with Pat. And I'm like, hey, boost that post I just posted, you know, throw that one up there so we can push it out. And so for the way I run my business, it's a lot more cost effective to have Pat do that, or, you know, to learn to do those things yourself. And so for me, it just was not money. Money was better put in other areas. And, you know, like product sales, if you're somebody who sells equipment or a product, a lot of times you don't need as unique of a voice as you do for a business that is service-based. You know, when we are a service-based industry, meaning our body workers, our trainers, digital content creators, influencers, et cetera, you are marketing yourself as well as your techniques. And so, you know, some of it, when we're looking to hire somebody, we maybe don't want to hire the person that is only used to marketing clothing boutiques to try to represent us as somebody who is doing a service. Because I promise you, they're going to want you all dolled up. They're going to want to do an artsy photo shoot. And it's like, I'm telling you from experience, people care about the quality of body work that you do, and they don't really care how sweaty you are while you're doing it. Have those big, pretty pictures if you want, put those on an ad if you want, but do not be afraid to post yourself actually doing your job. So that leads me to the next topic of things that have not yielded the financial return that I wanted. I'm going to kind of lump all of these together. I'm going to go print ads, banner sponsorships, print sponsorships, and rider sponsorships. I'm going to lump that into one category. The only way that I will do a print ad is if I put a coupon with it, because the only way that I know if I got return on that print ad is if I have a bunch of people bring that coupon back. If I spend $1,000 on print ads and I get one coupon return, that was not a good use of my money. That did not yield me any return. To me, in my opinion, print ads were a lot more effective back in the day before we had the internet, before they put the draw sheets online, when you had to go to a barrel race and physically buy a program and put the and you know, then you're going to read the print ads, especially if you're out of town, because it's like, oh, I wonder if any of the restaurants put a coupon in here because we got to eat, get done running barrels, right? Or like if you're like my mom, where she said and recorded every time run of a 300 run race. You know, that was the time when print ads really did well. You know, there are still publications out there that I'm sure print ads do great for. A lot of times you are going to end up seeing bigger print ads from larger companies, not so much from the small businesses, and you know, or product sales. Just in my experience, print ads have not favored me. And I got persuaded into, at one point, spending an astronomical amount of money with a large publication, because I thought if I bought a bunch of print ads through them, that maybe they would feature me on some of the articles. And that was what I really wanted. You know, this is a publication that's within my industry. And I had been featured in publications, multiple publications on the racehorse side of the industry, and several other like horse magazines that were outside of our industry, you know, had been featured in articles. I'm like, man, like, okay, I'm going to just invest all of this money and hope that that means that they will come back and ask me to be a source on articles. And that did not happen. I tried to buy my way in. I ended up with a huge balance that I couldn't pay. It was during the year when COVID hit. So, you know, barrel races weren't even happening. And I had spent all of this money that I had to work so hard to recover that I really had no business spending in the first place. So I was like, that was dumb. Like, that was not a good decision, Summer. Like, you were trying to, you know, keep up with the Joneses, and you were trying to buy your way into. I also have this quote that I love, where it's like, I don't ask to sit down at a table where I'm not invited. And there's the problem there. I tried to buy my way into a table that I hadn't been invited. And it did not yield any results. I had coupons with those ads and I got no return from it. And so that was a hard lesson learned. Banner sponsors, that's another one. You know, that's a big selling point. They always want to say, you get a such and such size in the program and a banner in the arena. How many of you can remember what banners were hanging at an arena that you were at 3 months ago? Chances are you probably can't remember. And so I care less about banner sponsorships and more about social media sponsorships. If I am sponsoring a race, I want you to blast out 3 posts for me on your social media. I want you to also, how often do you remember what was being announced during the barrel race? If I'm out there warming up my horse, I am not listening to what sponsors are being announced. I am in the zone. I'm thinking about my horse. I'm thinking about my run, and I'm not caring about what sponsors they are announcing overhead. Um, so I do not want to spend extra money for announcements. Again, if I'm sponsoring a race, I want you to share my post on social media. I want you to make a post saying I'm going to be there and tag my page. I want what yields my best return. And in my experience with my business, it has always been social media. Um, Rider sponsorships are another thing. So I have never and will never sponsor any riders. All y'all people that are messaging me multiple times a month asking me to sponsor your kid, your horse, your whatever. I might sponsor an organization, possibly. Again, circle back to if I can use that social media following. I will not sponsor individual riders, partly because I do not want to show favoritism. I appreciate all of my clients, from the 5D rider to the trail rider to the novice rider to the person that has rescue horses, all the way up to the 1D professionals that I work with. And it is an even platform with my clients for me. I do not believe in showing favoritism of, oh, I sponsored this NFR rider, but I will not sponsor this person's child. So if you see somebody tagging me and thanking me on my page, or you see somebody writing a review, I may have asked them, hey, if you liked what I did, please write me a review, because that's how I help more horses. Again, love it when everybody writes reviews, but they aren't earning anything by giving me that review other than they really appreciated my business. Now, if I have somebody that's hyping me up all the time, I might cut that person a bit of a special deal. Hey, let me knock $200 off of your rehab stay. Let me throw you a coupon code for the course because you're all the time tagging my page on stuff. Let me work on that third horse of yours for free because I really appreciate you letting me use your horses for video. I like to cut people deals if I can, because again, still have to make a living, but I would rather be the person that does that than the person that sponsors somebody and then you get the 3 generic posts. Oh, go check out Superior Therapy's page because they're my sponsor. Or even worse than that, here's my winning run, here's all my accolades, and then just random tag at the bottom of the post, Superior Therapy. Okay, I don't know if you used Superior Therapy last week, last month, 2 years ago, or if you don't use them at all, and they just paid you. That leads me to a sponsorship story. So when I started pro rodeoing, there was a NFR barrel racer that was from Oklahoma. I knew her well. I'd known her a long time. And there was a supplement company that, and at the time she had a really great running horse. And I had a horse that was bred similar, had a similar body type to the horse that she was running. And I was seeing her all over these ads, and I was like, oh man, like I think I want to try that supplement. Like her horse is like doing great, and they're kind of similar. And so I told mom, I said, next rodeo I'm at, I'm going to ask her. I'm going to ask her how much of it she gives, like when she gives it, blah, blah, blah. So I ride up to her, and after we run, and I said, hey, I want to talk to you about the supplement. And I said, how do you give it? How far out? And like, what's your routine? Like, our horses are so close in body type. Like, I want to try that on mine. And she looked at me and she said, oh, honey, she said, they paid me and bought that picture. She said, I have a whole bunch of it. She said, I have 3 boxes of it in my garage. She said, if you want to come get it and try it. And I said, you don't, and again, this is young, impressionable me that like at that time thinks I see everything. I see the world at face value at this age, by the way. And I'm like, you've never even used it on this horse? And she's like, no. And I said, oh. And so I go back to my mom, like I sit down with my mom and I'm pissed. And I'm like, Mom, like she doesn't even use it on him. Like they're saying that in their marketing, and like she doesn't even use the product. Like they bought that picture. And my mom's just going, "Oh, honey, like, hey, welcome to the real world. Like, did you not know that that happened?" And again, young impressionable me, I'm like, no, like, how can they just lie? Like, people just lie. And my mom's just going, "Oh, adulthood's going to be hard for you." and and there was another instance where there was another company. It was a therapy equipment company where a friend of mine was featured, and same situation there. I went and by the way, back to that company, I would have never used their product. Like that soured me so badly on that company, because I lost respect for them finding out the truth. There was another therapy equipment company that did the same thing. They purchased a um, picture and fabricated a thank you letter from a friend of mine, and I called and asked. I said, "Oh, like, are you using this equipment?" And they're like, "No, they called it. They called us and purchased that picture." And then they called me wanting to purchase a picture from me, and I said no. And I said, "Furthermore, I don't even want to use your equipment because I know that you were doing this. Like, even if you wanted to give me the equipment for free, I would not use it because I will not represent a company that lies." And I'm like, "You are liars. Like, if your equipment was that good, you wouldn't have to buy people's pictures to get people to purchase it and use it." And, so that was my education of looking behind the curtain. And to be honest, it changed the way that I have thought about marketing. Every time I see something marketed, I'm always trying to look behind that curtain of, okay, who's your target audience? Who's your demographic? Who are you really targeting? Is this person using it? And so, that those were the things that I ended up building my marketing plan around, of like, I will not be that person. I don't want you to feel obligated to put something on social media because you're under a contract to do so. Like, I'd love a thank you from you, but I do a lot of behind the scenes work, as do most therapists, where everybody else gets a tag, and we've worked really hard to get that horse to the level that they're at, and we never receive any sort of thanks. And that's just something that goes along with the industry. You just go, well, you know, we did our best, and we have to know at the end of the day we did our best, and we don't always get the recognition that we deserve. I've had people come through my course and take my course, and I see them out there doing instructional videos that are on techniques that I taught them, and they're bragging about somebody else's course that they took and their certification because maybe it gets them higher accolades in the circles that they run in. I don't care. All I can do is me at the end of the day. And like another thing that I want people to keep in mind, as I talk about, I don't sponsor any or any people. I'm also not sponsored by any products. So if you see me talking about something, I'm talking about it because I want to, not because I'm being paid. Because the only money I got coming in, I promise you, is money that I am making through therapy sessions and course sales. Now, I do have a few companies that I get some discounts for, in exchange for, kind of as a thank you for promoting or posting them on there. But those are companies that I would be with anyway. I get some discounts on repairs on equipment. I get some discounts on my own personal purchases of equipment. Some of the things like that, people will cut me a deal in the same way that I would cut a deal to some of my clients that are great about promoting me. And, hey, I appreciate that because I like saving money. I'm like everybody else. I buy things on payments and I like saving money. But I never really wanted to be somebody that pushed sales. And that's a lot of times what you get into with affiliate marketing. And not that it's a bad thing. So I don't want you to take it as, oh, it's bad to be an affiliate. But what I want you to keep in mind is your time is valuable. If you have to make 3 posts a week on this certain piece of equipment that you're selling or marketing or whatever, and you're getting a 10% or 20% commission, maybe even a 30%, depending upon the price of it, is that worth it to you? is getting on there and hustling 6 days a week to sell this worth that extra $500 a month, or could you be doing something to improve your business that you're making 100% of the profit on? And for me, I would rather promote my courses. I would rather promote myself. I'd rather promote my services than be a slave to a contract where I have to promote a product or something like that. And also, like, make sure it aligns with what you want to do with your business. And for a while, we had a supplement company that we did recommend and we represented when we had our facility. I liked their products. I had already been feeding them. I thought I saw decent results with it. And so I was like, okay, this is something like we can test this in the barn. And I took the idea to them and I said, I would like to, as I have horses come in our program, also put them on the supplement and see how well it helps. Well, instead of just having a discount code or an affiliate code where it's like, okay, when people want to order this, I want to just be able to list it on my social media and let them order it. They pushed me into keeping a whole bunch of stock. And I said, this is not really what I want to do. This is not what my goal is. Like, I just want to help promote. Like, I'm not a store. I'm not Walmart. People don't show up here to shop. They drop their horse off and I may not see that owner again for 30 or 60 or 90 days, or I may not see them again at all because that horse may come in on a shipping truck and leave on a shipping truck. And they just kind of refused to budge on that and set me up with a whole bunch of stuff that I ended up having to take back. And then some of it even expired before I got it. So like, it just did not work. And, so we ended up having a parting of the ways there where it's just like, this did not work for my business. I'm not a store and I don't have people coming here picking up things like you would at a feed store or a tack shop. And so for me, my biggest marketing is social media. And so if I can't recommend something on there and that's not good enough for a company, that's not going to be something that I'm going to be able to represent. And there again, I have to decide, is the percentage that you're getting for selling that, is it enough to cover and pay yourself, if you will, for the amount of time that you spend promoting that? And how many things are you promoting? Are you the person that promotes this supplement for 6 months and then this supplement for 6 months and then this supplement for a year and then this supplement? I see that all the time where people just jump from bandwagon to bandwagon to bandwagon of what they're promoting. And, to me, I think it lessens your credibility, where the equipment that I'm using, I talk about it all the time. I started the cold laser that my parents bought in 1997 is a cold laser that I still teach on today. The PMF that I started using in 2005 is still the PMF that I use today. Not to say that there are not upgrades to equipment, because I'm always out there searching and somebody's always wanting to come sell me something, always. But it has to fit in with the model that I have for my business. If it doesn't fill a void that I have in my business, it probably doesn't have a place with me. And so, if I'm going to bring something else in, it's got to do something better than something that I have, or it's got to do something different that something I have does not. And so, keep that in mind. Like, don't feel like you have to just sign up to everything that's out there, because sometimes you oversaturate your market, your customer base, by selling too many things when you could proudly represent a few things. It kind of comes back to that saying, a jack of all trades and a master of none. They used to teach us that in human massage school. They said you can be great at one or two things, or you could be mediocre at 5 or 6 things. Which would you rather dedicate your time to? Because there's only so many hours in a day and there's only so many days in a week. We can do a lot of things with time management and scheduling, but we can't create more hours in the day. So that being said, now I want to transition over to good investments for my business, like things that have yielded a good return. And I titled this section Technology Toys because this is going to be my husband's favorite section. Using gimbals, tripods, microphones. There's all kinds of things that will help you hold your phone. Like there's a system out there called paved, I think is the name of it. And it's a little like automatic thing that tracks with your phone. A lot of trainers use them. There's systems like that. Pat loves using a gimbal to help steady his hand whenever he's doing videography stuff, which he's got a pretty steady hand anyway, but a gimbal helps him a lot. You can use selfie sticks, you can use tripods. We have just upgraded to microphones. Pat's been after me for, I don't know, years to put on microphones. And I'm like, I don't need one more thing. No. He finally found a lot of the TikTok influencers are using, and they should cut down with wind and noise outside. So stay tuned to see us debut our brand new microphones. Most of these things you can find on Amazon. Selfie rings, computer cameras. One thing that helps me have confidence in my videos is having a little bit of having a selfie ring. So like the camera that I have on my laptop here is just one that Pat got off Amazon. I don't know if you need suggestions on what to buy. Message the Superior page and say, hey, Pat, what technology do I need? Because I totally try to stay in the dark with it. I'm the person that if I could make a living and throw my cell phone in a lake, I would do that. But since I can't, here I am still doing the technology thing. I struggle with it every day. But, I have found that it helps my confidence when I have a good lighting system that helps, when my audio's good, when I know Pat's going to get that shot that I need. And so I'm lucky in that aspect that we have two of us that run and operate this business, where a lot of therapists, you may have to set up a tripod and record yourself doing sessions with horses. Figure out ways. Sometimes you have to have somebody help you. Sometimes you don't. Some of our best videos, again, have been videos that clients have filmed of me working on their horse. And then I ask them at the end of the session, hey, can I have that video to teach with? Most of them are like, yeah, I'll send it to you. Or they airdrop it to Pat, or again, do the technology stuff that I'm not that good at. Because then you're looking at stuff through a client's eye. So some of your good routine clients, ask them, hey, would you use your phone just like it's your eyes? And would you capture the angles of me working on your horse? Because sometimes that's a lot easier than having a tripod set up and then the whole angle of it is your rear, nothing but your rear in the camera as you're working on a horse. It's really hard when you don't have the opportunity to move that camera around. So I'm lucky that my clients know that education, most of them have found me through other people's videos where I'm educating. And so most of them are more than happy to let us film and use that to teach with, or for them to film and send it back to us. I also have clients, I had one reach out to me today and go, hey, do you want the x-rays on this horse to teach with? Sure. I love anything that I can use to teach with that I have permission to use. But these are some cheap ways to enhance your videos, your self-made videos, and make them look a little bit more professional. I probably at some point need to do a podcast on the apps that I have on my phone, because there are some apps that you can use for, creating collages, marking on like your photos and things like that. But they're different for Android than they are for Apple, and vice versa. So that's probably a topic for another time. Another thing like that I find really helps me out is social media collaborations. That's a great way to get a lot of exposure. I'm going to use Tonda Collins for an example because she just did a podcast with me. I love having Tonda on podcasts, and she is one of the first people that I interviewed because she is so great at her craft, and she's so great at talking about the Equirest and the development of it. When I was starting out and I didn't really know how to interview people, I knew that Tonda was going to be able to talk, and I could just kind of fill in with some questions. If you are not confident enough to get on and do a podcast like I'm doing here, interview somebody that's more, I don't want to say successful, but more experienced in talking about their craft. Heck, if you want a podcast guest, hit me up. If you want to talk about therapy, because we all know that I'm good at talking now. Didn't start out that way, but look at me go. And so, those are ways to get started. And if you're working with somebody, I'm going to use Tonda again, for instance. If you tag Equirest in a video, I promise you she's going to come back and she's going to share that video, whether it's you using the nebulizer on your horse or a client horse, whether it's talking about why we should nebulize horses, whether it's interviewing her. Those people are going to come back and share that. I share a lot of my content of my graduates when they are teaching stretches or out there working, or, if it's something educational and my graduates tag me in it, I'm usually going to try to share it. If you've made a post and I haven't got it shared, maybe it's because I didn't see it. So tag me or say, hey, Summer, I made this cool post. I'm there. Like, I want to be your biggest supporter. And, kind of like the podcast that I just did with Jordan. I asked her, I said, hey, do you want to lead this one? Like, do you want to talk and let me fill in? And Jordan's like, I'm not quite there yet. And she's like, I want you to lead a few more. And she said, then I want to try to lead one. It's like, okay, I got you. Those collaborations, one, are usually going to be free because I'm not paying somebody to come on my podcast. And I have yet to run across anybody that's trying to pay me to be on a podcast. So they're free collaborations where all you're out is your time and your effort. But they can really help cross-platform different audiences. Maybe when Tonda shares my podcast, that leads more people back to the Superior Therapy page. When I put them on the Superior Therapy page, hopefully it yields her some more business. It's a win-win for everyone that's involved. And it's as simple as, using your phone or picking up a cheap camera for your computer. And, something else that I want to add in there is when you're trying to plant posts, and sometimes I have to remind my podcast guest of this, is if it is education, you can plant it in a lot of groups. If it is advertisement, they will say, no, you've either got a sponsor to advertise or we do not accept advertisement in this group. And how do we tell the difference? Okay, if we are educating, again, I'm going to go back to Tonda's podcast. That's going to keep being my example here. We were talking about why you nebulize. We're talking about what you can nebulize. We're talking about conditions it helps. We had this whole educational piece. And then, of course, obviously at the end, I'm going to go, okay, Tonda, where can they purchase your equipment? Like, tell me the story of Equirest. How did it come to be? And when you lead with education, it is a lot easier to be able to share those posts rather than just, oh, you should buy an Equirest. I think it's the best thing that there is. Everybody should have an Equirest. I've not given you any educational piece there. I've given you buy my stuff. That is simply advertisement. And that also circles back around to being featured in magazines. So a lot of times with like magazine articles, there has to be an educational component. Here's 10 ways to enhance the career of the older horse. Here's 10 ways that using an underwater treadmill benefits the performance horse. Here's 3 simple stretches that will help with joint health and the longevity of your equine athlete. Those are educational pieces. Now, if you are featured in an article, obviously they are going to come down and say, this article features Summer Terry of Superior Therapy. Maybe even here's where you can find her website. Here's you can find her courses, blah, blah, blah. If somebody is interested in what, it's like, wow, I really resonated with that article in that magazine. I'm going to go look up this person's website. I'm going to go look up this person's Facebook page. So therefore, in my experience, being educational has yielded me more business and more success than strict advertisements of buy my stuff. Now, usually you have to have a little component of both, because you will see ads on our page where we are just simply advertising our courses, or I'm just simply advertising for therapy sessions. But I don't think anyone in their right mind can say my Facebook page is full of nothing but advertisements, because the hours of educational video that I provide for free would make that person look like a fool for that statement. And so that leads me into like one of my other branding rules. So I have this internal rule that I need to give 2 things for free and 1 thing I want you to buy. And so let's say that I am going to do a stretching demo at a barrel race. I'm going to teach you 3 stretches that you can do that'll help your horse. I'm going to talk to you about the benefits of PEMF and how it helps your horse. And then I'm going to also add in that if this information was helpful to you, I have these certification courses that will go in depth further to teach you the skills where you can help your horse in more ways than just the 2 that I've taught you here today. So you give 2 things for free, and then you have one thing they have to pay for. Another way of this, I had a graduate that set up at Tractor Supply, and she did, I also didn't know that you could do that. I learned that through her. And then I was like bragging to another one of my students. I was like, I don't know how she got this deal to go set up her local Tractor Supply. And the student looked at me and goes, you can just call them and ask if you can set up in the parking lot. And I said, no, I had no idea. And for the amount of money that I spent buying shavings at the Guthrie Tractor Supply, I cannot believe we did not take advantage of that free service. So now check your local Tractor Supply. But I had a graduate that set up there, and she did something similar where it was like, here's 2 bodywork techniques that you can do to help your own horse. And then here's what I do as a body worker that will help enhance your horse. So here's 2 things that you can do yourself. Here's 1 thing, here's something that you need a professional for. And that allowed her to open that dialogue and that conversation and be inviting without people feeling like that she was going to sell you something. Because there's nothing worse. I'm the person that walks through the mall and I pretend I'm on the phone, even if I'm not, because I don't have the heart to tell the cart salesman in the middle no. So I just try to hurry past them and talk on the phone at the same time, because I just want to be left alone and I just need to get in there and get out of whatever I'm buying. And I don't really want to be advertised any other things. So when we're building business, we don't want to come across like that. I don't want to be the person that I feel like I'm having to run away from them at the mall. And so if you're offering a couple free things, then that entices people to come and interact with you. And that creates a little bit of that relationship where they can kind of see whether or not they're going to mesh with you before you pitch what you want to be paid for. And so, that leads me to another topic of, I touched on this a little bit, but aligning with brands that fit your business model. When we create a business model, again, I would not align with the brands that want you to market stuff to death to people. And I'm going to use multi-level marketing as an example here. Now, I sold supplements for human supplements for a multi-level marketing company years and years and years ago. Hugely successful company. I still use their supplements now. I just don't have the time to market them. So I really haven't. Could I be making income off of that? Sure. Is my peace of mind when I get done for the evening worth the not having to chase down orders and market that? Absolutely. So I take the supplements and go on with my day. Maybe one day I'll roll out what I take, but today's not that day. So for my business model, I don't want to be under contract with a company where I have to make 15 social media posts in a week, because sometimes I post a lot on social media. Sometimes I'm busy with other things and I don't get to post as much. And my time and effort in posting is stuff like this right here. And so I don't want to be forced to have to market something that doesn't align with, or that drowns out my business model, my current business model. And bringing us to that, one of the first things that I ask my students whenever they come in to training is I ask them, what is their mission statement? Or if they don't have one, to create a mission statement. So let's talk about that a little bit. What is a mission statement? A mission statement is your why. Why do you do what you do? So if you were to ask me what the mission statement of Superior Therapy is, it's bringing quality therapy and therapy education to horse owners and therapists around the nation. And so, that encompasses why I do what I do. Why am I making this podcast right now? Because I want you to succeed at your therapy business. Because if you succeed, then horses get helped. If you don't succeed, then you end up frustrated and defeated, or you feel like maybe you feel like I sold you a dream that wasn't realistic. You can have all sorts of perceptions about not succeeding in the way that you want. And so, in my opinion, if I can give people the tools to help them succeed, the horses are the real winner. And so, there's my mission statement. And then the second question that I always ask everybody is, and your mission statement can change, because in my initial mission statement for Superior Therapy, it was, I wanted to have a high quality rehab facility that was able to help enhance the lives of performance horses. There was no educational piece in there. Now there is, because I found the need for the education. The education is what actually ended up progressing the success of Superior Therapy. So then, now coming back to the second question I always ask my students, who is your ideal customer? And this is a question that most people don't understand. They don't think broad enough. Like I may say, who's your ideal customer? And they go, I want to work for the reiners. I want to work for the working cow horse people. I want to work for the barrel racers. I want to work for the English riders. If you were to ask me who my ideal customer is, it is the person that is willing to put in the hard work and to expand their skills in order to help their horse or their clients. So you notice with that mission, or with that ideal customer, it's broad. I didn't pigeonhole myself into one discipline, one type of horse, one type of event. I have covered a thought process. I have described the thought process of my ideal customer. When I come do therapy sessions, my goal is always to teach my clients as I'm working. So if you're going to be the person that sits over there on TikTok and scrolls your phone the entire time I'm working, or you're the owner that's not even there, chances are you're not going to be my client. You're not going to be a client that fits what I'm looking to achieve. Now, there's always circumstances where, sometimes it's a horse that I'm doing a follow-up on, or sometimes it's a racehorse barn, or sometimes I'm going into a rehab to work on a horse and the owner's not present. There are extenuating circumstances there. But for the bulk of my clients, for my individual therapy sessions, if you are not willing to do the work to help progress your horse, I am not willing to expend my energy to have to keep returning and this horse stays at a plateau. You've got to put in the work, and then I will match that effort and by far supersede it, and we will create a better athlete. And so, those are things to think about with your business. What's your mission statement and who's your ideal customer? And the thing on equipment I want to add, equipment should expand your skill set as a therapist. It shouldn't be your only skill. If you are the person that is just dependent on your equipment and the feedback from your equipment, you are limiting yourself. There are equipment companies that want to keep their practitioners on a leash. They don't want them to learn any more skills. They don't want them to expand their skill set. They don't want them pairing therapies or pairing it with body work or pairing it with an underwater treadmill. To me, they're doing a disservice to their practitioners, because it is insane to think that one skill is going to be the answer to every problem. I have to think outside the box every day with what I do. And there is no way I could do what I do with just one piece of equipment. Now, I can do a lot with just my body work and my acupressure skills, my Eastern medicine knowledge. I can do a lot with just my hands, but as far as one piece of equipment being this is the end all be all, I have not found that piece of equipment yet in my career. And, we're talking a 2-decade long career here. And so my suggestion on it, I love equipment. Equipment's not bad at all, but make sure when people come and they ask me all the time, what equipment should I buy? What do I need to buy for my practice? I'm like, well, what are your base skills? What equipment is out there that would enhance your existing skills? That's how you decide what equipment that you need. And so, now I want to transition into building your brand. Because what I want to finish up with on this podcast is, building that brand, creating that legacy, creating a force that helps your business to thrive. And, one of the first things that we have to do when we're creating a business is, aside from doing our business plan, is creating a logo and a color scheme for our business. So when we were at Guthrie, I had 2 different color schemes. I thought whenever I was shopping this plan around to the different banks and things like that, I actually did not have my purple hair. I colored my hair back dark because I felt like I would be perceived as not business professional if I had my brightly colored hair. So the first logo that I created for Superior Therapy, and the logo that was on our signs on the front of the barn, was a black background with this elegant gold Superior Therapy logo. And if you were to ask where my name comes from, where Superior Therapy, if you look at the way my logo is designed, you will see that it's SNT. And so it's a play on my brand. My Summer Nicole Terry, my brand is S&T, and it steps downward. Well, I couldn't get anything to flow for the N. So what we did was we made the S bigger and the T bigger. And then the N is shrunken down, but is still present there in the middle of the brand. So Superior Therapy is literally just a play on my existing brand that was on my horses. And so I used that elegant black and gold logo for the first couple of years. And then I'm just like, this really just doesn't fit my personality. And that led me into the creation of that really brightly colored background that I created myself that you see back behind the logo. And then, that just become the trademark logo. And, as soon as I closed on the place, I went back to my purple hair, and, the rest is history. Now, there's been times, different points in my life where my hair has been different colors. Technically, it's probably been about every color that it could be. But what I stick with mostly is my purple, because I like it, and it makes me really recognizable with my business. I like doing the bright colors. It's just something that has always fit me. And so I run with that. But if you're trying to figure out like a color scheme for your business, there's if you Google the psychology of color in business, you will find tons of articles where colors make us feel certain emotions. And, I'll use one for example, like the color blue. Blue in a logo is supposed to provide feelings of loyalty, feelings of family, feelings of like being included. Um, and there's all kinds of others. You just have to look it up, like Google the psychology of color, and you will find a lot of options. So if you don't have a color that you're particularly drawn to, maybe look into some of that. Like what feelings and emotions do you want to instill in your potential clients? Also, things on logos, the color scheme helps mine be recognizable, because going back to banners in an arena, when you look at the Superior Therapy logo, it's kind of noisy because I have all the swoops and things like that in there. So mine's a little hard to read from a distance, compared to, let's say, Davina's logo, the Redmond Ranch logo. Davina's is also a play on her brand. Hers is the R Spurred brand. Hers is very simple font that you could read from a long distance away. So her like banners hanging in an arena, Davina's is going to be a lot easier to recognize than mine. But if you follow any of my content, as soon as you see that bright color scheme, you're going to instantly know, oh, that's Superior Therapy. I can't read the logo, but that's Superior Therapy. And then then that leads into like t-shirts and merch and things like that. Like you can provide a lot of those things. And I find that people like wearing your shirt. They like representing your business. I love buying small business stuff and representing it in videos, just because I feel like that helps everybody out. But here's an idea for getting a good return on your merch, whether you're giving it away or whether you are selling it. We used to do we would do social media contests where you had to have your picture taken in a Superior Therapy shirt. And then I would have a specific hashtag. It might be hashtag, I don't know, MBHA State 2001 or something like that. And then I would pick a winner from those posted pictures where they had to tag the page. They had to post the picture of them wearing it. And sometimes I would even just give away just a fuel card. Like, hey, here's $100. Like if you come by the booth, get your horse worked on and use the hashtag, I don't know, Happy Horses 20. I'm going to pick a winner out of there for I'm going to Venmo you $100 and here's you a tank of fuel for playing along. To me, those things always yield big results, and it's representation of getting your brand out there. There was a statistic they gave us in a marketing class that I took where it states that the brain has to hear or see a logo 11 times to really remember it. And that being said, I think that holds true because I have people, the most common misspelling of my logo is they will put Superior Equine Therapy. The word equine is literally not anywhere in my logo. I don't know why everybody does it. People also tend to get my name backwards. They will call and say, oh yeah, can I speak to Terry Summer? And I'm like, well, my first name's Summer. It's Summer Terry. I also recognize that I kind of have either two first names or two last names, however you want to look at it. And so don't be afraid, like I tag Superior Therapy in every single post that I make because one, it drives the engagement up, and I don't want them to have to go hunt to find my page. I want them to just be able to click on it and go. And also like another thing on like giving away stuff, like particularly at shows, in my experience, I will not give away anything that drains my energy. And what I mean by that is, unless it is a cause that I really, really believe in, I am not giving away bodywork sessions, not for free. My effort, my time, my energy, I have to protect that. And so nobody's getting a bodywork session for free. Like it's just not happening. Now again, there's been causes. There was a benefit that I donated to last year in Arizona. I'm trying to build business out here in Arizona, being our first year working out here, I did donate a full session. And, that's fine because it yielded great results and it was a cause I really believed in. But I am not going to every barrel race and donating 2 or 3 free bodywork sessions. It is not happening. So what I don't mind giving away is like coupons for, say, a PEMF session or a nebulizing session or something like that, because one, then I have that client there for 30 minutes while I'm running PEMF, that I can start to establish a relationship with that potential client. And maybe they end up adding on some other services, or they end up buying a package deal of sessions. Those are the things. And if all they do is take the free session and walk away, I wasn't out a ton of energy to do that PEMF session or to do that nebulizing session. That gives me a chance to give my spiel. And if all they do is walk away with the free session, that's fine. One thing I like to do is I like to give like 1 out of the money prizes. I would almost always do that to my like NBHA shows, or I'd give a hard luck award and I would let the office choose, somebody that hit barrels all 3 days or whatever. Because I've been that person. I've been that person at the barrel race where it's like, I just spent $1,000 to be here. I just spent $1,000 in vet bills. Everything has went wrong. But I got a t-shirt, so it wasn't a total loss. I've been that silver linings person. Another thing, if you are strictly a service-based business, I might give a coupon for half off of a bodywork session. Because then if that person is only looking for something for free, chances are they're not going to pay the other half of it. So you're not wasting your time on them. But maybe it's somebody that's like, oh my gosh, like I've always wanted to have her work on my horse and I just haven't quite had the money. And now I have this half off coupon, or this 20% off coupon, or this 75% off coupon, if you will, of, okay, now I can afford the rest of that. I used to do that when we had the rehab, where I would give a percentage off of, like if it was a big race, I might give $1,000 off of a month-long stay, where they had to use it. They couldn't say, oh, I'm going to take $1,000 off of a 2-week stay because then I don't owe anything. I would always specify in there how that money could be spent, because I found that they would not claim that coupon if they weren't interested, because they still had to make an investment. And people that are willing to make an investment, even getting something on a sale or a discount, if they still have to make an investment on that sale, chances are you're going to have a lot better option of making them a return client. And, one thing that Pat brought up that he wanted me to talk about in this podcast was the quote that I use a lot: comparison is the thief of joy. When you start out with stuff, whether it's branding, marketing, videos, doing a podcast, don't expect to start out at the level of somebody that has a following like me. I have kind of found my stride in the years of doing this. I found my stride. I kind of know what works for my business. And I'm a lot more confident being on camera than somebody just starting out. A lot of it is false confidence, because I really hate being on camera. I really do. But here we are doing the thing. But that being said, when I first started doing videos, I just didn't know where to start. So I just had to start somewhere. Everybody wants that like TikTok viral success. But a lot of times those viral successes get their 15 minutes of fame, if you will, and then they burn out, and they can't sustain that level of engagement because they didn't have any consistency. They had a one-hit wonder video. You see the same thing in music, where you have a one-hit wonder song and they can't ever get back to that level again because they didn't have a slow build. I promise you, a slow build of being consistent and improving the more that you do it will yield better results over a long term. There's a podcast out there that I recommend everybody listen to. I love it. It's called the Everyday is Saturday podcast. Sam Crowley is the guy's name. He started doing podcasts way before there were ever podcast apps. I can't even remember how many years he's had his podcast. It's, you can listen and find out. But his are very short, impactful podcasts of things you can do as a small business owner to improve your business. He films all of, or they're not even, they're just audio podcasts. He records all of his podcasts on his AirPods, sitting in his car, usually in whatever coffee shop that he likes in the parking lot. And his are like short, 14, 15 minutes. I used to love starting my day with them because it was just it was about the length of time that I was going to take a shower, and I could have this like amazing, like pump up, yeah, I'm going to go conquer the small business world today podcast to kickstart my day. And then, of course, how he makes his money is he does coaching for small business. This comes back to that giving something away for free. He gives you information for free, hoping that you will book a conference call with him and sign on to some of his marketing programs for small business. And he's also paid for engagement because he has a very well-known podcast. So, you eventually get where social media will pay you for engagement. And, that kind of brings us into different types of marketing. So you have three main types of marketing, and I'm going to kind of break those down a little bit. You have storytelling marketing, which is typically what I do. Sharing the story of this horse, sharing the comeback stories, sharing something inspirational, something motivational. The example that I teach with on this type of marketing is Budweiser. How does Budweiser make their money? Well, by people drinking beer and getting drunk, honestly. But in their marketing, they take a storytelling approach. Don't drive drunk because your dog doesn't know why you didn't come home. The powerful stories of these Clydesdales bringing the beer to the different places. Stories of family, stories of friends getting together. Their marketing has really changed over the years. We're in the 90s. We had the Budweiser frogs. We had the party scene. We had the celebrities type of parties. In the 2000s, they transitioned into the more motivational type of storytelling. Again, the dog, don't drive drunk. Your dog doesn't know why you didn't come home. The story of the little donkey that wants to be a Budweiser Clydesdale, so he makes a Christmas wish to be a Budweiser Clydesdale. The dog that runs along with the carriage of horses. Those are emotion-provoking commercials, because I know that's the only reason I care about the Super Bowl is I care about the Budweiser commercial. And I have teetotally cried to a Budweiser commercial. And so storytelling marketing is designed to provoke an emotion. And then the next type is statistical marketing. So this is what you see a lot of, like your vet clinic pages. 90% of performing horses have ulcers. Here is what we need to remedy the ulcers. X amount of horses bleed during performance. Here's what we offer at our vet clinic to help with bleeding in performance horses. X amount of percentage of NFR horses use this product, use this supplement. It's numbers and analytical marketing. And so, not that there's anything wrong with that, other than that's not really something that I align with, because I like telling stories and I feel like that yields me the clients that I'm looking for. The next type of marketing you will see a lot, and I promise you, somebody who does it, is controversial marketing. These are the shit stirrers. I am going to throw out a super vague post or a blanket statement post, knowing that everybody's going to get on there and argue with it. There was a company that did that not very long ago. They threw out a post that alluded to the effects that that fitness does not matter because your horse is going to intake the same amount of air whether they're fit or not. Now, as a therapist, what they were trying to convey was that the amount of fitness in a horse dictates how well our horse can utilize the amount of oxygen they are inhaling and exhaling. And it just did not come out that way. But they had like 800 comments, I think, on the post. And I don't know how many shares, and I'm sure their engagement was insane. And I'm like, mission accomplished, because you knew when you made that post that it was going to provoke the internet into hysteria. So their page got all kinds of engagement by people that didn't even know that product existed. Another one, like you will see people, so like what you will typically see when people post something controversial is they are seeking engagement. They are seeking those comments, the shares, I'm going to share this so I can put my opinion on it. And that stimulates the algorithm so that page is now coming up on the news feed of new people that wouldn't have seen it before. And so what they end up doing is they will come in behind that and drop sell posts. Here is my shit stirring, pot stirring post. And then, by the way, I sell this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing. And so when you have a post that has good engagement, that's a great time to drop in some other marketing posts right behind it. While the algorithm's hot, you got to jump on it. Now, I do not align with throwing something out there. Sometimes I throw out something that is vague, that I'm trying to stimulate I'm trying to create a response as far as like a conversation. I throw out something that maybe is conversational. But I'm just not the person, like, I can't get with I'm gonna throw something out there that I know is gonna make the internet blow up. I had a post that would still be if I had left it up, would still be my most viral post to date on TikTok, where I showed an old trick that came from Martha Josie about how to size the seat of a barrel saddle. And I had 200,000 comments on this, or 200,000 views, and I don't know how many comments, way too many, because I deleted the post, of people on there, everything from fat shaming me to this doesn't work with my English saddle. Well, I didn't say it worked with an English saddle. I said it was for a barrel saddle. How do I size my Australian stock saddle thing? I have no idea. I don't know what that is. And I was just like, okay, I can't handle the negative press is still good press. Like, I deleted it off there, came back, reworked that post, added and stitched in Martha Josie's video, freaking NFR, Martha freaking Josie's video, and reposted that. And because there was no room for anybody to argue there, that post got, I don't know, a fraction of the engagement, like literally nothing. But my peace of mind was much more important than being TikTok famous and arguing with the internet, because TikTok is the Wild West. TikTok is very interesting to navigate because they are so steadfast in their opinions. They wield their opinions like a weapon on there. And so sometimes with TikTok, you have to be ready to defend what you're putting on there. And that's hard. Sometimes I have a love-hate relationship with TikTok, and with my posts in general. Like, when you get to a point where I'm at on a platform, you really have to have all of your T's crossed and your I's dotted, because I don't know what it is about the internet where they just, the quote of, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all, is just obsolete. Everybody's on there wanting to pick apart and tell you what you're doing wrong or how they would do it better. Well, these platforms are free. If you can do it better, get on there and go for it. I'm doing the best I can do every day that I put a post on there. So, if you want to be holier than thou, go for it. So, Um, talking about that brand recognition, you will see very few things that don't feature my logo of some kind. I have a little 1 second clip that I put at the end of my videos that overlays my logo, and it has some animation. We had people stealing our content from Superior Therapy when we had a rehab, and I got tired of overlaying a video or a logo on my videos. So I had a kid come in and spray paint my entire roll up door that was behind the tread. We had a banner that was directly behind the tread and a spray painted roll up door that had my logo. And that was just my rebuttal to, not going to say that you can't Photoshop a logo out of there, but you're going to have to work really, really hard to do it, because it's going to be in every frame of a video from now on. We love that door. We would take client pictures in front of it. Highly recommend personalizing your facilities. Like, it gave it a flair that I didn't know I needed, and we loved it. And so when you are creating your brand, make sure that you stay true to yourself. And don't feel like you have to like go to this like crazy professional level. I've had a few people that gripe and they're like, oh, there was wind in the video. And I'm like, well, that's because I work on horses outside. There's wind and there's sweat and there's dirt, and I'm doing the best that I can do. And maybe try the next video if that one wasn't good enough for you. This is not RFD TV. I have a one-man camera crew, and my husband's doing the best that he can. And some days he's trying to use his body to block wind, and he's holding the phone right here, trying to block all the wind that he can. Like, we do the best we can. And if you think you can do better, go do that. But thinking about it, there used to be a podcast I used to like to listen to, unhorse related. It was called Hillbilly Horror Stories. And it was a husband and wife team that would share these ghost stories. You could submit a place and they would do the research on whether or not it was haunted, and they would bring you several ghost stories in an episode. And sometimes like one episode, their Amazon person showed up and knocked on the door, and like she had to go like answer the door to get the Amazon. And like one episode, their cats were fighting and were like growling in the background, like just hilarious real life stuff. One episode, they had a car crash outside their wherever they lived, and they had to like stop the episode and then come back and finish it after they had made sure everybody was okay from this car crash that you could totally hear on there. But then as they grew in popularity, then in came we have to have 4 breaks for our sponsors during this episode, and insert sponsor here, and blah, 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 blah. And that actually, and then they kept upgrading equipment, and what they lost was that personal flair. And I actually haven't listened to her podcast in a long time, and like, good for them for having success. But I missed the simplicity of this husband and wife and the sometimes chaotic things that happened during their podcast. And so, don't feel like you have to have an RFD TV level production. I don't even know why I'm bringing up RFD TV or the Cowboy Channel, because they can't even get all 3 barrels on there. They got millions of dollars worth of camera equipment, and they always have the camera on the wrong angle for the barrel racing. Like, who is running that? My husband with his cell phone would at least have all 3 barrels and the run out in there on every run. I don't know why we're doing what we're doing. But again, sometimes fanciness takes away from the point that you're trying to drive home. And again, coming back to like endorsement deals and things, you're not going to catch me endorsing something I don't believe in. We kind of touched on that. Because when I'm endorsing something, I also have to stop and go, okay, if I'm having to really hustle to represent something, am I doing, as a small business and an individual, am I doing the 100% of like the grunt work for a larger company, and they're just sitting there raking in the money they're making off of my hard effort to market their product? If I don't see some reciprocation from somebody that I'm working with, I'm not going to keep working with them. And I've had brand deals and equipment deals where they're like, oh, like we could make you one of our advisors, one of our team advisors. I don't want to be in a team advisor. Do you want to be my team advisor? Because I have a lot of social media on my plate. I don't want to answer company questions for you. Um, you're the company, you answer those questions. You talk to your clients. And a lot of times they're trying to outsource that because they don't want to handle it. They don't want to deal with it. They'd rather a sales rep deal with it. Well, I don't want to deal with it either because my plate's full. Like our plate looks like a Thanksgiving table on any given Monday. And, so if you are working with a company, make sure the compensation that you're getting is worth the amount of effort that you're putting in. And so, let's talk a little bit about the difference in a dealer, an affiliate, and a sponsored person, whether it be therapist or individual or rider or whatever. If you're a dealer, typically you are paying a wholesale price for something and you are selling it for a retail price. Maybe you're somebody that stocks stuff. Maybe you are a dealer where stuff ships out of a warehouse. A dealer is typically going to make a higher commission than an affiliate. An affiliate, what we're most used to seeing in this day and time is our social media affiliates. Drop code winner 2024 for a 10% discount, for a 20% discount. Sometimes those affiliates are being paid in discounts on that product or that equipment. Sometimes they're making that percentage as a paycheck, being paid in commissions. Or sometimes maybe they were given a free piece of equipment or something like that, or a deeply discounted piece of equipment, and they have to just make social media posts in effort to pay off that equipment. But usually an affiliate is getting some kind of income, whether it's paid in product or paid, it's monetized. And when we talk about sponsors, sponsors are hard because some people that are sponsored literally just have a patch on their shirt and they just want to wear the patch. And they go, oh, I'm a sponsored athlete. I have this patch. Sometimes you're getting paid in product. Sometimes you're getting paid in services. Or sometimes, you may have like your bigger people may have a sponsorship where it's like, okay, we sponsor X amount of fuel per rodeo season for this rider. You're not going to typically find that in the therapy industry. Most of the time you're going to get free product or free equipment is usually what you're looking to gain there if you're sponsored. But again, all of those things make sure that, I don't want to get a $20 tub of poultice for free and me have to make 3 Facebook posts or tag them in every post. Every time I run my horse, I have to tag this poultice company. Because to me, that's not yielding the return. It's a $20 thing of poultice. But now let's say I'm a therapist and it's like, hey, I will endorse this poultice if you will provide me free poultice for my therapy business. Then I will absolutely make some videos on here's how to safely poultice your horse. Here's how to wrap your horse using featured poultice. Those are some things that can yield really great mutual benefits. And so create a vision board. Like, to finish up here, I know we've covered a lot, and like all of my podcasts, I start out going, oh, I'm not going to talk that long, and then I talk forever. But create a vision board, circling back to setting those goals. Even maybe start as simple as I'm gonna start with a 1-week goal, and then a 1-month goal, and then a 3-month goal, a 6-month goal, a 1 year, a 5 year, a 10 year. This is how you make sure you create a roadmap for your business. Where do you want to be and how do you climb that ladder to get there? Because most of the time, success is going to require you to get out of your comfort zone. And if you're not willing to do that, then you may end up stagnant, kind of spinning your wheels and not progressing like you could be. Vision boards are fun. Like I love having a set of goals stuck somewhere, and it keeps me accountable. So at the end of the day, we work hard. Like if you're not having fun with what you're doing, um, you're not going to last. You're going to burn out. You've got to firstly have fun, but also not compromise your beliefs. Don't be afraid to be silly and authentic. If somebody were to ask another person what their opinion is of me, I would hope that people would perceive me as being authentic and approachable and hopefully kind. That at the end of the day, that's what I want to leave behind as my legacy. That I was approachable and I was relatable and I was kind. And in order for me to come across that way, in order for me to put that version of myself out there, I do things like this. I make videos. Sometimes I'm silly. Sometimes I'm tripping over my words. If you've ever tried to see me read out loud, it is laughable at best. But I'm authentically myself, and it's taken me a long time to get to that point where I could have the confidence to do things like this and to be like, no, I have important things to share and to say. And no matter how scared I am, I'm going to step up and I'm going to put that content out because I never know who I might help. And every time I put a podcast episode out or a video out, I am flooded with comments of people saying, thank you for doing this. Thank you for the information. Thank you for providing this for us. And those are the affirmations that keep me going and keeping me doing this content, is the joy of helping others and pushing myself outside of my comfort zone and conquering fears one by one, where maybe someday something bigger does fall in my lap. I don't know that I'm ever going to be somebody you see on TV, but I can use this free platform to reach a lot of people, to help a lot of horses, to help a lot of owners, and to inspire the industry that I'm really proud of. So I feel like that's a great statement to quit on and close out this podcast. And hopefully it was helpful. Hopefully you learned something. And hopefully you catch me on another podcast. Happy trails, y'all.